Afternoon and a very warm welcome. You're watching Times Now Live. I'm Kritsween Valia. We start with the update we've been tracking the last few hours on the plane crash, the Yeti Airlines that has crashed en route Pokhara Airport. Just a few kilometers short of the airport is when the plane crashed, and now Yeti Airlines has released its first statement on the crash, has confirmed that 4 crew members and 68 people were on board. There are 10 men, 25 women, 3 children among those who were on board and 3 infants, including 43 Nepalese passengers, 5 who were Indians, 4 Russians, 2 Koreans and 1 Australian. Apart from this, 1 Irish national and 1 French citizen as well. So that's the detailed list that's now coming to light with regards to the passengers on board, their nationalities. And what's coming to light is, apart from the 68 people who were on board plus the 4 crew members, there were 10 men in total, 25 women, 3 children, 3 infants. 43 of these passengers Nepalese origin, 5 Indians, 4 Russians, 2 Koreans, 1 Australian, 1 Irish and 1 French citizen. Let me quickly, before we take this across to our guests who continue to stay on with us, experts joining us with what could have led to this crash. We have Shivya also joining us from the newsroom with more details. Shivya.
Yes, so as far as the press release by Yeti Airlines is concerned, let me take you through the details because that's written in the native language, but I'll translate it for our viewers, which says that according to today's date on Sunday 15th, the ATR 72500 of Yeti Airlines, which flew to Kathmandu, Pokhara at 10:32 in the morning, crashed while landing at Pokhara International Airport. It also gives us the details as far as how many people were there, which includes 4 crew members and 68 people, and that also included 10 men, 25 women, 3 children, 3 infants, including 43 Nepalese, 5 Indians, 4 Russians, 2 Koreans, and from other countries as well. And the plane was last at Pokhara International Airport tower at around 10:30 a.m. Remember, it was at 10:50 a.m. when the last contact was established with that plane, and the details are yet to come, and the rescue and fighting team are at the Nepal police airport. So that's the details that have been given out in this press release by the airlines.
For getting us all those details, Shivya. We quickly go across to our guests who continue to stay on with us. Mr. Devesh Agarwal, if you can hear me, anything that you can tell us about, these kind of short commercial flights. About 25 minutes was the duration that this flight had to travel from Kathmandu to Pokhara, and with 72 passengers on board, 68 of them were passengers, 4 of course were crew members. What can you tell us about the duration and the consistency with which we see these flights operate? Do they operate on a daily basis or weekly basis? Perhaps some kind of pressure to make sure that these passengers reach Pokhara in time?
The ATR 72, basically, the ATR, which stands for, if I remember, Aeronautic Transport Regional, is an aircraft that is operated by Air India. It was operated, as I said, this particular aircraft that crashed, in fact, was brand new to Kingfisher Airlines in 2007. And Kingfisher Airlines has had a good safety record. It's been the ATR 72 has been operated by Jet Airways. It's being currently operated by Indigo. It's being an equivalent aircraft made by Bombardier, which is the Q400, is operated by SpiceJet. So the ATR 72 is a very good, reliable aircraft. It has got a good safety record, and it is essentially designed for regional operations. If you see Star Air, of course, they use the regional jets, the Embraer regional jets, but these are aircraft that are specifically designed for short flights, what we call high cycle counts, means, very frequent landings and takeoffs. And they are constructed in a way to, they're designed for the regional operations. They are very fuel efficient. They don't operate very fast. They're reasonably slow, gentle aircraft. So I honestly, God, it's difficult to, speculate on this as to a reason. As I said, the aircraft is a good aircraft. It's not that it's a bad aircraft. I mean, the ATR 72 is operated globally. It's not that, it's just something that is used in this part of the world. Yes, there have been crashes involving ATR 72s. If you recall, there was a case in Taiwan where the pilot made a configuration mistake, and soon after it took off. If you recall, there was a video of this ATR 72 crashing over the bridge and going into the river. But it's a broad fleet. It operates multiple flights, and see, just because a flight is short does not mean that procedures are compromised. Any airline that is operating has to meet the same, flight safety and procedural requirements. And earlier, one of your guests, they mentioned that there was no mayday from the aircraft, and for pilots in the event, see, we have a thing that we say the responsibility of the pilot first is to aviate, i.e. fly the plane. Second, to navigate, take the plane in the right direction. Third, is to communicate. So suppose some kind of emergency happens and the pilots, both of them, are more busy flying the plane and trying to go in the right direction, and they don't have the time to communicate. It's understandable. So just because somebody has not communicated that, I mean, the job of the pilot first and foremost is to aviate. And I don't think I can ever recall an instance of a pilot not fighting to save his or her airplane right to the point where it went into the ground, or into the sea or whatever. I mean, basically to the point it crashed. Any pilot worth his or her salt is going to fight till the last microsecond to save the aircraft.
Okay. And I'm sure that would have happened, and that's what we should at least conclude or reassure ourselves with at this point in time. Mr. Rajan Mehra, but given that, we have Mr. Agarwal tell us that the ATR 72 aircraft is reliable, it's had a good safety record. Since you have also closely monitored these kind of operations, having been the CEO of Club One Air and the ex-India head of Qatar Airways, have you come across any sort of technical snags that have been reported with regards to this aircraft, the ATR 72?
See, if you go by history, there have been crashes of almost every make of aircraft. So you really, just because an ATR has crashed, you cannot, point a finger at the quality of the aircraft or the safeties of the aircraft. It can be any aircraft, and the reason for the crashes can be multiple. So, it's not as if any aircraft has been built with some sort of lapses in security which could lead to crashes. That has never happened. If it happens, then the global bodies make sure that the problem is rectified. So I don't think that ATR as an aircraft is in any way unsafe. As the previous speakers have said, they are flying all over the world with most of the airlines. For short routes, it's a very popular aircraft, and Nepal has mostly these short flights. It's a small country, but it has a lot of tourist places where an ATR is very, very capable of going. So I don't really think that one can sort of brand a particular make of aircraft.
Here's what statistics have said. Nepal's unfortunate history of dead plane crashes speaks for why this is a worrisome situation ahead of us, because according to the aviation safety database, there have been 27 fatal plane crashes in Nepal over the past 30 years. 27 is not a small number.
Even if the terrain is very bad in that area, if the procedures are followed sufficiently, the training is sufficient and good, I don't see any reason for any crashes taking just because they happen to be flying in difficult terrain or difficult areas. The system must be put in place first and foremost, very adequately and properly, so that these sort of incidents or accidents do not take place. I am personally not satisfied with our conditions in India and this region for our regulators, our DGCA, etc., to have taken or have sufficient knowledge on aviation safety and standards. That has been my concern, and the statistics which are given all over the world clearly indicate those figures, and that can be rectified and should be rectified. So just because flying in difficult terrain doesn't mean that you should have more crashes there.
Okay, so that's no excuse. And you know, this is a tourist destination. You have tourists from across the world travel to Nepal, and these are popular tourist sites there, especially Pokhara. And in that sense, something like this can certainly not be afforded. And on a repeated basis, a second such crash in the last few months itself. We also shift our focus to another bit of breaking news update coming in. Times Now has also accessed details of the Indians on board the ill-fated Yeti Airlines flight. Abhishek Kushwaha, Bishal Sharma, Anil Kumar, Rajbhar, Sonu Jaiswal and Sanjay Jaiswal were on board the Yeti Airlines plane. So that's the detail of the 5 Indian nationals on board the Yeti Airlines flight that met with this crash. So this is the first detail of the Indians on board the plane that Times Now has accessed for our viewers tuning in this afternoon. Remember, a total of 53 Nepali nationals on board the flight, 5 Indians, 4 Russians, 1 Irish, 2 Koreans, 1 Argentinian and a French national. All of them were on board. Attempts still being made to find out more people, recover more bodies. Let me go across to Devesh Agarwal, who also continues to stay on with us. We have the list of the 5 nationals on board the Yeti Airlines flights. Now, you know, this was something that was feared because given the proximity that Nepal has with India, given how several Indian tourists do travel to Nepal, Pokhara being one of the popular destinations. In fact, my colleague who was reporting on the story was also telling us that more often than not, this is the route that Indians take from Kathmandu to Pokhara to finally India.
If you recall earlier, I'd mentioned 32 years ago, I had gone from Kathmandu to Pokhara as part of my honeymoon. So yes, it is a popular tourist destination, and Nepal does have some very challenging airports. I think one of the most difficult airports in the world, Lukla, is also located in Nepal. But I fully also agree with Captain Wadia that we have in this part of the world a tendency, to sort of, how do I use the word, brush things under the carpet in order to protect the system. We're very happy to assign blame rather than investigate, come up with the actual root cause and take steps to, fix the underlying causes. As long as it's some government agency involved or something like that, the tendencies are, let me protect my own kind of thing. And that is something where we need, I think, an absolutely independent investigative agency, like we have the National Transportation Safety Board in the United States. The NTSB does not report to the FAA, which is, sort of like the DGCA in India. It doesn't report to the Federal Aviation Administration. It reports directly to the president. Its budget comes directly from the president's office. It's not dependent on any department or ministry or anything for its funding or its staffing. It's completely independent. And that's what in many ways ensures that, mature markets, the same thing applies in France. You have the BEA. Again, it's completely independent. And so these are the ways these countries are able to mature their safety systems. And it's not that, they have something so, it's not that, let's face it, Indians are competent people. I mean, people in India are competent. It's just...
This certainly, Mr. Agarwal, is most unfortunate. Like I said, 27 such crashes that have taken place in Nepal in the past 30 years. But this one, I believe, worst of them all. Thank you for really helping us understand the situation better. Stay on with us, gentlemen. We need to head into a very short break. We'll be right back.